So with Matt Gaetz out of the picture, much of the spotlight on Capitol Hill has turned to Pete Hegseth, Donald Trump's pick for Secretary of Defense. Now, just for a moment, to his credit, Hegseth is a veteran who has served in the Army National Guard overseas in both Afghanistan and Iraq. I will also say that Hegseth is pretty good on TV, which as a general skill set I can tell you is not a bad thing to have in your cabinet. For about a decade, he's worked at Fox News as a contributor and host, and we know Trump loves Fox News hosts. And Hegseth has also written a number of books. But here's the thing. On TV and in those books, Pete Hegseth has also pushed some out there ideas, even echoing the notion often repeated by Donald Trump that America is filled with enemies from within. Hegseth described the book he wrote in 2020 as the strategy we must employ in order to defeat America's internal enemies. Now, that alone should give any senator pause as they consider his confirmation, right? But it's certainly not the only thing. And the details about people who are being nominated to high-level positions are so important. That's why I've been talking about it all show. So I'm going to walk you through what we know about Pete Hegseth at this moment. We know that he faced an allegation of sexual assault. That incident was described in a memo written by a friend of his accuser, which was sent to the Trump transition team and obtained by the Washington Post. Now, the memo lays out that in 2017, a 30-year-old woman identified as Jane Doe was at a hotel in Monterey, California, staying with her husband and small children as she worked as a staffer for the California Federation of Republican Women. Hegseth was there because he was the keynote speaker at an event the group was hosting that night. The memo reportedly goes on to allege that Hegseth raped the conservative staffer, Jane Doe, in his room after drinking at the hotel bar. An investigation was opened. Charges were never brought. But Hegseth did later pay Jane Doe an undisclosed sum in 2020 as part of a non-disclosure agreement. As his lawyer told the Post, Hegseth maintains that the encounter was consensual, and he made the payment because he feared any revelation of the matter would result in his termination from Fox. Hegseth's lawyer even added that Jane Doe had been the aggressor in the encounter. That's according to Hegseth's lawyer. And when Hegseth himself was asked about the allegations by reporters on Thursday, this is what he said.
Did you sexually assault a woman in Monterey, California?
I have, as far as the media is concerned, it's very simple. The matter was fully investigated, and I was completely cleared, and that's where I'm leaving.
Now, to be clear, Pete Hegseth was not cleared, and the 22-page police report released this week shows that it's not as simple as he'd have you believe. According to that report, an emergency room nurse contacted police after treating a woman who said that she may have been drugged and sexually assaulted. The woman said that during drinks after the conference, she, quote, stated that she observed Hegseth acting inappropriately with the other women at the conference. Hegseth would rub the women on their legs, and she thought that his actions were inappropriate. No kidding. She was flagged by another female conference attendee who hoped that Jane Doe's presence would help deter Hegseth's sexual advances. She even texted someone that night that Hegseth was giving off a, quote, creeper vibe. Next, Jane Doe remembered walking out of the bar and assumed Hegseth followed her because she argued with Hegseth near the pool. The argument was about Hegseth's actions with the women at the conference, to which Hegseth responded by saying that he was a nice guy. Now, this confrontation at the pool was corroborated by a hotel employee who said that Hegseth was very intoxicated while Jane Doe was not. Jane Doe goes on to say that her next memory was in an unknown room and that Hegseth was in the room with her. She stated that she got up and tried to leave the room, but Hegseth blocked the door with his body. Jane Doe remembered saying no a lot. The police report that details the woman's recollection of being underneath Hegseth, which she described as a sexual assault. Now, the district attorney at the time recently told NPR that they declined to pursue the case after determining that no charges were supported by proof beyond a reasonable doubt. But again, declining to bring charges against someone is not the same thing as clearing them. That also shouldn't be the standard for any senator with a role in his confirmation. And yet, a number of Republican senators responsible for advising and consenting on this incredibly important position don't appear to have any further concerns or questions. Josh Hawley told reporters, listen, he denies it. John Cornyn said, that's hearsay. We're not going to decide based on pieces of the story. And Markwayne Mullin said, there's actually a full report and you guys can read it for yourself. I don't think there's any way in the world you can say that this is a sexual assault. That's all from Markwayne Mullin. Well, I have read the report and I would strongly disagree. If anything, I definitely want to know more about what happened. Everybody should. And I actually feel like that's not a political thing to say at all. The United States Department of Defense is one of the largest and most powerful agencies in the world. The Secretary of Defense will be in charge of the most powerful military in the world, including tens of thousands of women across the world. Is he denies it really the standard we're setting for the person who's supposed to do that? Is he denies it really good enough in the face of that damning set of circumstances I just read to you? I sure hope not. It shouldn't be. As we've been discussing all hour long, because it is kind of the story right now, when you don't properly vet candidates for cabinet posts, surprises happen. And that seems especially true in the case of Pete Hegseth. Rolling Stone reports that according to 4 sources familiar with the situation, some top Trump transition officials and others close to the president-elect have been puzzled, if not infuriated, that Hegseth did not preemptively inform them of the allegations against him. One source close to Trump said, quote, this is quite a quote, "How did he not know? Why didn't he tell us? Pete wasn't interviewing for a job at McDonald's. This is the effing Pentagon." Joining me now is Democratic Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill. Before she was a member of Congress, she was a U.S. Navy helicopter pilot and a federal prosecutor. She's now a candidate for governor in New Jersey. And I can't wait to talk to you about it. I have to start there just because of your background. You know, there's so many specifics we don't know here about what happened with Pete Hegseth. Also, there's questions about his qualifications, of course. What do you want to know more about this story?
Wow. I want to know why him. Why do we have a person here who has allegations of sexual assault, who thinks women shouldn't be in the military? Women represent about 20% of the military and are performing certain jobs now in our military in combat, such as women in the Lioness squads who went in and cleared homes and gained intelligence that really means that we need them there on the front lines. Why, somebody who has not understood, I think, why we even have war crimes, why we say certain things are unacceptable in our military. Why him? Why does anyone think this is the person that should be the Secretary of Defense of the United States?
There's so much to get into, and you as a former Navy pilot are the perfect person to talk about women in combat. I first just want to ask you, because the Senate is about to, of course, consider this nomination. And again, on the sexual assault allegations, there's just like a lot we don't know. One option could be Hegseth waiving his non-disclosure agreement and making that public. Is that something you think should happen?
This is why these NDAs in situations like this are so damaging to understanding what actually happened. And I think damaging to women who want to get the truth out about certain situations. Yeah, why did he pay this woman off when he comes forward and says he's been fully cleared? Obviously, that is not the case. I've seen no evidence of that. As a former federal prosecutor, I can tell you that there's a difference between not bringing charges and fully clearing someone, and he has in no way been fully cleared. I think we want to understand, what happened there. But again, I just would suggest that with his views on women in the military, when you are trying to bring a fighting force together and you are trying to make sure that people from across this country can come together around a mission, when you are making sure that some of the people that are best trained in some of the top positions, like commanding officer of an aircraft carrier, or the superintendent of the Naval Academy, or the chief of naval operations, the highest ranking person in uniform in the Navy, when these people are so needed in our military, why are you going to put somebody in charge of them? Because, by the way, all of those roles have been filled by women. Why are you putting someone in charge of people that can't bring people together and instead is trying to divide, denigrate, and degrade our service members? It will make us less safe.
It's such an important point, and such an important point for people to look into. I want to play something that General Milley said this week. You may have seen this, but I want to play it for our audience and talk to you about it on the other side.
Don't lecture me about women in combat. Women have been in combat, and it doesn't matter if that 7.62 hits you in the chest. No one gives a if it's a woman or a guy who pulled that trigger. You're still dead. So if you meet the standards, our military must be and always should be a standards-based, merit-based military, period, full stop. It doesn't matter if you're white, if you're black, if you're a man, if you're a woman, if you're a Catholic, if you're a Protestant. None of those identification things matter. What matters are standards, readiness standards. Do you meet the standard or not? If yes, pass go, collect 200, join the infantry.
So, I mean, it's a very powerful statement from him. You've outlined a lot of the things. I wanted to ask you just on a personal note, as a former Navy pilot, you've talked about the role of women in the military, such important roles. Do you worry about a chilling effect? And what other consequences and impacts do you think this could have on the rise of women in the military?
I worry about a chilling effect with all of this. I've heard members of our military who are considering retiring early. I've heard of people who have wanted to go into the military and are considering not doing so, and I've encouraged them to enter our military. Now is the time when we need people of such good character to stand up for the weak and vulnerable, to make sure that as they are protecting this nation, they are also standing up for the people who are serving under them, and making sure that they feel invested in their service and respected for their service. So it already has had that chilling effect, and I worry very much what it may do should he, in fact, become the next Secretary of Defense.